it's just going to bring you down.
Yeah, that's
You
all it's
know,
gonna do.
I bring myself down a lot. So, I mean,
I know we're a dangerous combination. It is starting to sound like a Joe Rogan podcast.
oh, we'll get
Okay,
some clicks. Okay, I'll boost this.
we are back with another episode of the Strick. We have warmed up. We are channeling our professional podcast selves, and I'm here today with Howie Noel.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for my
Thanks for coming
professional
on.
radio voice. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're very, very excited to have you. You have known Anthony for a bit of time.
Yeah. I found him. I know him because he did work. He worked with my wife Shelly. So Shelly wanted me to say hello to everybody there and his dog.
Hi, Shelly.
Yeah, and yeah, he hired me to do caricatures for the company and portraits before, and it's always fun because you get, it's always great to draw.
I mean, yeah, you have a ton of amazing work out there, but if anyone wants to see a caricature of me, you can go to istrico.com. The whole team has not mean characters. We talked about this,
Yeah.
just cartoonified people.
Yeah, just how I see you and draw you, because it's just how I draw. Like, that's what I discovered when I was younger. I got a really mean caricature. I think I told you. I got a mean caricature in grade school. I was mortified. And that's what I thought caricatures were until probably my senior year in high school. A professional who drew like Sylvester Stallone. He was this awesome guy, and he came to my school and he drew all of us. And I was like, oh, you can draw them so people like them. I really didn't know. I was like,
Oh, wow.
I thought you had to hate these.
You're like,
'Cause
these are only roasts.
Yeah, and I was like, that's what I do. So that's what I do. I want you to like it. I'm sensitive about things, and I know people, because when you sit down, some people will be like, please don't make me fat. Don't make me have wrinkles. Don't draw this. Don't draw that. And so I joke, well, therapy is a little extra than what I'm getting paid today. But
So how early were you drawing?
I always drew. My mom was an artist, so it was, and my dad's turned out he was my biggest supporter. You realize that later on. You realize how lucky you are. I always loved my dad, but you realize that was very special, more than just putting a thing on the fridge. He always had my kindergarten art that won a $5 prize. Like, I won an art prize in kindergarten. He had that hanging in his office. And you just think, oh, there's my art. But later on,
You realize,
he passed away. He's my biggest fan. So I search for that all the time and bother my poor wife or friends. My mom said he was just always amazed by whatever I did. So, but I always drew as a little kid. I would be drawing whatever. If I remember, I still have it because my dad would also save everything. I have a tablet and you can tell the date on it. It's 83. So I'd be 5 years old, but they gave, I think aunt and uncle gave me for Christmas a big sketch, just drawing paper. I filled it that night. I remember that night I filled it.
Wow.
I filled it and I was like, hey, and I drew Garfield, big Garfields or a Santa. And
Wow.
so that was my thing. And I was lucky throughout school. I always had teachers that were supportive. I didn't run into any non-supportive people probably till college. And that's because they're warning you. The road ahead is, it's how much do you want to take before you quit? And they're warning you, but I have this. No, I'm going to do it.
That's most 20-year-old artists, me included.
What are these guys talking about?
What do you mean? Of course I'm going to be on Broadway by tomorrow, probably. Go away. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the nature of so free. I was going to even ask if you had gone to college because, it's not necessarily required in our field.
No.
You still have to hustle whether you graduate or not. You've got to prove yourself and build your portfolio. And then on top of that, it's always changing. Even since I started editing, the Premiere updates, but then the AI of it all. And before that, you used to cut film, and now it's in a program not that long ago. So yeah, you have to constantly be learning new skills.
Oh yeah, because when I went to college, it was the turning point where I got to college, and we had computers in our high school, but we didn't have the internet. My mind was what is this thing? And then they were just having Quark Express. If anybody's ever heard of this program, that's what they used to design newspapers in, or news Quark Express. That's before they had Illustrator. But we were still being taught painting, and I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. So I commuted. I lived with my dad in Queens. We had an apartment, so I would commute like 2 hours each way just to go to college. So I
Yeah.
really wanted it, and I've always wanted it. And then you have to come to terms with, after college, it's like, this is the reality. I've seen people try to imitate other people or imitate, I've seen imitations of me, and it doesn't have something. It's missing something. And that's a magical, intrinsic quality that you see in art. I just think, everything changes and very fast nowadays, and you have to adapt. That's what I learned in school, that you have to adapt. You have to do certain things, and
Right. Well, and it's a holistic approach. You could be a super talented artist, but if you don't have the skill to adapt, or the skill to edit, or the skill to all these other things that you have to do to deliver, not just to clients, but create what you want, you can't just be like a super talented Mozart. You have to have a bunch of other
it doesn't
skills.
matter if you're talented. Like there's people that are just got in the right place, the right time. I've seen it. And in comics, it's a lot where they know the right people. They have the right buddy. You're wondering, you'd sit there and go, how's this out here? How's this happening? It still happens. It's a little niche. It's a little buddy. And my belief was, I've seen it happen, and it hurts, right? Because you almost get an attitude of, but I did all this work. I've earned it. I deserve this. That's a bad thing to have that I learned. I learned over time. Well, life isn't fair. I've learned that. Life isn't fair, and you don't deserve anything, honestly. And you have to keep your mind in that positive place and move forward. Make your own, I mean, like this year, new year, everything's changed from last year as far as like social media already, like as far as algorithm. You just got to just make what makes you happy, because you don't know what's going to happen the next week.
Well, and what I was trying to quote this the other day, and I messed it up, and I'm gonna mess it up again. Preparation and practice equals luck, or opportunity, something like that.
There's no shortcut over just doing the work and practicing all the time, because people will ask, what brush do you use? What program do you use?
As if that's like the magic key.
Yeah. And because they're also used to a lot of people not sharing that, I'll share it with you. But I'm also like, it's just my life. It's what I've done. It's with all
It's
the
not
practice.
a shortcut of a brush.
It's drawing.
And I found the quote. It's, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And I feel like that's the perfect, because I was looking through your Instagram, the one that has a bunch of followers, Dick Tracy's Rogue Gallery.
Yeah, Dick Tracy Rogue's Gallery.
And
that's my big one.
that's James Gunn's trailer dropped, and like the next day, because you had had a lifetime of preparation, you were able to just draw that so quickly, right?
Yeah, I did it within an hour.
Yeah, so you drew this incredible thing within an hour, and like what James Gunn shared it within a day.
Saw it. Warner Brothers saw it. DC Comics officially shared it. They commented. Superman, the official account, and James Gunn, and people are like, how could you do this so fast? And it's like, because that's what I've been working. I can do that. I can do caricature. I can draw you in 5 minutes at a party. I went through those scenes. I was starting the other one where he saved the girl that I eventually where he saved the girl with all, and I was like, I started that penciling, and I was like, I can't draw all this glass and get it down as fast.
But that's another skill.
I was like,
the
other scene that touched me is him laying there with the dog, because we've all been there on a rough day, and your dog comes over, your pet, and I was like, I really liked it, and I did that. And plus, white dog on a white snow background with a white sky, I'm like, that's much quicker for me to do. And I made it a goal of, I know how fast other fan artists are, because they don't have to do all the retro effects too, and my way of coloring. I know how fast they can be, because they could just do this. Somehow I was like one of the first, if not the first, to pop that out. So
how much does that matter, like first versus best, when it comes to social media attention?
First is good. At least you're giving it a try. Like other things came before and get shared a lot, but that went everywhere, to the point where like everybody was showing it to me, and luckily I did get tagged, which is nice, because you should tag things if you see it. Just find out who the artist. So many people thought that was an old comic, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. I love that grainy. It feels like you can tell that it's made I don't know like what the opposite of AI is, just like in real life, like even though it's in a computer still.
Yeah, it's tactile. Like you have a feeling,
Tactile.
and it's so funny because sometimes people follow me and think I'm just posting old pictures. I began the Instagram because when my father was diagnosed and he was sick back in 2019, and then 2020, I started redrawing the Dick Tracy characters because I always would draw them with him. Like I'd show them to him. I would redraw the comics in the newspaper and put him in them as Dick Tracy because he worked in New York City, so we lived in Pennsylvania, but he would commute on Mondays and come home on Fridays. But he had a trench coat, he had the raincoat, and he had the hat in his car, and he had always wore a suit. Like he was the best dressed man I have ever seen. And he was born in the 30s, so I always just related him to that world. And I was like, he must go do like Dick Tracy adventures. Going back to stay moving when it was going on, I would draw these and then send them to him by a phone, and it was a way for me I kind of went back to childhood, to hold on, and I would send them, and I would send my mom the art too. And then I was like, I should make my own Instagram of these. I tried to be consistent. I was just posting all the villains. My goal was to draw the villains. Well, I got pretty close to drawing nearly all of them. So then I started doing other portraits and my own thing. And people were always like, I wish you could draw the comic strip. And so I'd do some, pitch ones just for fun to show them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it evolves to, you do reels or you do them in motion. You can add little effects like rain. And then I started going, okay, we could draw these and then maybe segue into other things I like film noir. So draw Humphrey Bogart. And that actually got the official Humphrey Bogart estate to see my work, which was it's a big deal because I like to pretend he messaged me, even though he's passed.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He's like, great draw. I'm like, thanks, Bogey, even though but yeah. And then over time, luckily, you don't know if it's going to happen or when, but one of the Humphrey Bogart reel went viral, the In a Lonely Place, because you can use it's a famous quote, and but my art combined with it resonated with people, but also they showed it to like countries that have never seen my art. So you got a new reach. That was a good month. People like that. So if they like it, I'll make the art so they can see it, and then they'll order, prints from me or custom art. And it's just about staying out there and something resonates with people. And, I've had the opportunity to talk to other artists and directors and actors I really like because they saw the art in their algorithm. I mean, like people I liked in movies have followed me, and it's neat.
Yeah, it's a love what you do situation where you're just
Yeah. You just get, when I graduated, I was talking to the woman who they had a class like trying to prepare you for the business part, which all changes a year after I graduate, right? So back then, and she's like, how are you going to market yourself? I said, my website, I'm going to do the internet. And she laughed, literally not even like laughed out loud at me. And now look what everybody is, I was just a little ahead of the curve with that. I had a website right away. I did music posters. So I did music posters for, I've done Noel Gallagher, the Pixies, Ryan Adams. So people will see, and the Midnight, and they'll see those. And then you get other artists who like that. And I've done album work for Matt Forbes, who's a great singer, like in the style of Bobby Darin and Sinatra. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I like working with other artists. So you get the opportunities to do that. And I didn't know that was going to happen. I think that's awesome that, and people would collect those posters and they'd sell out. And that's awesome. I didn't think that would happen. And, and getting the chance to do that, like bands that I liked when I was young, that's crazy. I mean, the Pixies is a big thing for me. So
yeah. And so I wanted to ask you, at this point in your career, do you feel like is it more that you've like found your style and have found success within that realm, or are you always trying new styles and this is like another phase?
For jobs, I'm able to do a different style for what you need. So you could do a very realistic painterly style if you want that. If you want very cartoony, kind of animation friendly, I can do that with no retro effects. It all depends on what the person wants. That's why people think it's fun when they follow and they see the film noir is very different than like Dick Tracy work. But I still want you to see at the end of the day, it's me. And, you know, I still draw the way I draw. But it's cool that the one thing that I discovered was by going back to the Dick Tracy strip, drawing those characters, and that helped me find what I do now with the, you know, the retro. That's what I was always doing when I was a kid. So it's like going back to what I did as a child is where I found my path, what I was meant to do. It's cool because it's still me. And I was like, well, this feels so natural because that's what I did. That's why. And people liked it.
Yeah.
They liked what I did. So drawing these gangsters or something, or the fun looking people, or the scenes from a movie I liked, like Batman, I used to recreate that when I was a little kid, you know, playing. Just going back to your core, what you were. It's neat. It was neat to discover that. I think I like feeling I'm on the right path. The main thing I want is people. I want you to feel something when you see my art. I want you to experience an emotion. So,
given that, what is the dream? Like, would you want to make a comic book one day, work in movies? What's the dream at the moment?
I started working on because after my dad passed, I had like a lot of sad things in a row. My mom passed. I had a best friend pass, and we lost our pet. It was like real bad.
I'm sorry.
You know, around the pandemic thing, and it was like this is some giant test or something. You know, it's just one of those things. But I had a comic series before that, like Paranormal, so which still you could still find out there, and it was all about supernatural. So I took a little break from that because it's so much death in real life, and that's why I started doing these. So I have a comic strip, Clue, that you can read on my website on hcnoel.com, and you can read it for fun. And it's like the old school, a 30s or 40s private detective strip. He's a private eye, so he doesn't play by the rules that everybody else has. He's very much in the vein of like a Sam Spade, Maltese Falcon, Big Sleep, and so that's very fun. I want to this year have a physical version of that. I think it'll be just almost a retro single issue, as if you would find this in an antique store. So it's going to look aged, like, oh, what is this book? You know, that I like that. And then I'm working on like a personal book that I'm going to take my time and put out, and it's going to be I like graphic novel, and that should be bigger because I've always put the comics on Instagram and social media for fun, and on my website they're in newspaper format, so you can see like what it would look like in the newspaper. I would hope to do more of that, and my goal is I have another goal where I did a guest strip officially last year, which was a mind-blowing achievement for me, was the official Dick Tracy comic strip I actually got to draw. I actually got to be a guest artist for like 2 weeks, 3 Sunday episodes, which is insane to me. And it was how I drew Dick Tracy. It was my version of him.
Cool.
We got to make a new villain in canon in the actual comic strip I read as a kid.
Oh, cool.
And so I hope we get to continue that. There's not
so
been scene
fun
where,
to reinvent something you love. Like that is a dream job. That's cool.
yeah, and allowed to do it. Like I put that
and state
1940s
sanctioned. Like
Yeah,
I mean, it's just nice living in your world. It's like a nostalgic world that sometimes also has superheroes.
yeah. I was reading up on it. I forget the word for it, but I try to create my art. Sometimes I want you to feel a nostalgic feeling for a time you never lived in. And it's like there's a phrase for it that you feel nostalgic for a time you never lived in.
Yeah.
It's like a life you never had, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so my idea of 30s and 40s is a very romanticized, almost pretend one, but that's what's fun about imagination.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that era. And in my mind, there's no cigarette smells.
Yeah, that's the thing we'd be going back to. It's everywhere. Like, I thought when I went to Hollywood and I liked, we were trying to go places that Bogey hung out in, and he smoked a lot. And I was shocked. We went to this famous restaurant, and it's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at Frank Musso's Grill. And like, we actually sat at the right seat to get the famous scene. But I was like, it does not smell like cigarette smoke. How?
Right.
I mean, how did you get it out of here? Like, I just don't understand. You'd think they'd be still like, because my gosh.
Because how do you ever get that smell out? No, but I love that place. It really captures the era. There's no way I'm going to pronounce it right, but I think it's a German word. It's like Fernweh. Fernweh. that's a nostalgia for a place you've never.
Is that it?
been.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I try. Some of my pieces, I really try to get you in that moment of feeling like that. There's one where it's like the summer night where he's staring, at a girl in the window, and it's got that's the feeling. Like it's like that's a moment in time that's not real, but you kind of imagine it. But you would still have your modern stuff.
Yeah, like I would be able to have that woman in the window, like, is allowed to open a bank account. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not. You're not. You can. Yeah. You're for you. You don't have the other troubles there. You're not.
Exactly.
That's why it's make believe. That's why.
I just want to end sort of just asking you about inspiration. Obviously, you're reading comics a lot, but you brought up your dad. I know you have a project based on your dad, but it also feels like New York is like a main character in a lot of stuff. Like, where does all this come from?
I was born in Long Island, but they moved me very young to Pennsylvania, and that's where my mom was from. But I always was like, I got to get back to New York. I don't know why I always had that in me. My dad would always be in New York for the week, so I had a very, once again, romanticized view of New York. Movies, TV, books, like the classic, like detective film noir inspires me. Seeing like moments and feelings that are presented. I'm trying to make things that I would have liked as a kid too. I try to hold on to. I've always been able to hold on to the imagination thing. I had a big imagination. I've never lost that, and I think that's helped me get through life, for good or bad. Just got to get that movie out of my head. That's the inspiration. They kind of replay through my head scenes, like I see them, kind of like a movie. I see these scenes, and then I try to get it as good as I can for you, and on the paper. Yeah, it's about fun. I love old comics. Like, I love Golden Age Superman, his first appearance. I like what he looked like. I like that vibe of how they draw. So, and with the old Dick Tracy, I always try to, if I'm doing something with that, I'm trying to go through and kind of absorb it and just funnel it through how I do things, because it's not a direct. I get inspired by that, and I try to watch a lot of films. I try to look for that, because there'll be times where you just need an inspiration to go sit down and watch a film, see if there's things like that. And
in order to make art, you have to consume art.
Yes. Try to tap into your childlike reaction to things. Like, how did that make you feel back then in that moment? Yeah. That's what I try. A little bit of that innocence.
Yeah, I think it's maybe trending a little. Like, I think you're ahead of the curve again with that one, because I hadn't really heard that. I thought it was more just like a therapy term about almost Freudian, just accessing your past trauma that you'd buried. But Chapel Rowan said that her character Chapel Rowan was from, and her career did not work until she tapped into her inner child and found that sound and that look. And I think she's doing what you are describing, where she figured out what made her happy when she was a kid. Is the same, like, you're the same person. It just gets lost in life and in like movement. But then if you can tap into like that core of you, something can click. It's not for everybody, but so once I heard that phrase for her, I started looking into it, and I'm starting to understand it.
It was a weird moment when I had a realization that doing what I did back then is what I should have. Not in a regretful way, because I still had successes along the way, but it feels right, and people are responding to it because that's what you were always doing. And that's what you like doing, and it's natural. I was like, why is this feeling so natural? Because that's what I did when I was 10 or whatever. That's what I like. I always wanted to do something with my dad as a character, and people, it's crazy, like when he passed away, people, you should do a book of him. You know how hard it is for me to draw him? Like, you don't understand. It's like, I do have little comics of him, but he's in everything. That's what they don't get. I mean, he's in everything. He's always been in everything. He's always appeared in everything. He knew it. And he's got little comics I make of him. I got him on the, I think it's over here. I got him on the front page of my hometown newspaper with the Dick Tracy. I called the local newspaper, and I said, hey, I delivered your paper when I was a kid. My dad read your paper every weekend when he'd come home. And got Dick Tracy because of him, and I got to draw him with Dick Tracy, like they're a team up, and they put that on their front cover.
Do you have it?
Yeah. You want to grab it?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I see?
Yeah, I'll grab it. That's my dad there.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So it was a really great article, but yeah, there he is. So you see, that's how I draw Dick Tracy, and that's how he gets to appear, and I give him that watch, and then my dad has his Rolex he always wore.
That's so cool. That's
But
really
yeah,
cool.
my dad's book will happen like properly with him. It's just it's like he's the most important to me. So how you got to get the story down. How would I get a story with that?
This is such a great conversation.
Yeah, I had fun just hanging
Yeah,
out.
me too.
I didn't drop any curse words, right? I don't think I cursed.
I don't think
Did
we
I?
did. That's impressive.
That's
for me.
shocking because my wife says I
Yeah.
curse like a sailor. So
Same. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. This was such a good conversation. I found it very inspiring and relatable. So yeah, thanks for spending the time.
well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
What's the best place for people to follow you?
My website is hcnoel, hcnoel.com. So you can message me there. You can read all my sample comics. You can read the Dick Tracy comic there. You can order prints and order commissions. And also on Instagram, it's at Dick Tracy Rogues Gallery. So you can follow along there. Let me know if you came from the show. I'll follow you back.
Well, if James Gunn's your favorite artist, then Howie Noel's your favorite artist's favorite artist.
Yeah, he liked my stuff. He officially said, "Oh, I love that about my Superman." So yeah. But now I got to do some Superman art this year, so we'll see. When
Big
that's
year for Superman.
yeah, just draw and see what happens.
Thank you for listening to The Strick. If you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Comment here, on Instagram, or LinkedIn. This is a podcast from Istrico Productions. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.